Good evening to everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on behalf of the A&M Group and the Farmers Journal to this Farm Profit Programme update evening. We'd also like to bid a special welcome to our online viewers who are watching us on Facebook. Tonight we're streaming this event live on Facebook to a lot of people who are following the programme. So welcome to all our online viewers. So to keep the evening interesting for us tonight, we've got the meeting split into three sections. So the first section, which we're having here in round one, involves the live cattle demonstration, and it's entitled, "Is a live calf better than no calf at all?" So it's going to be a challenging session, and it's given us all the pointers how to increase output from our herds. So that's the first part. Then after that, just in case some of you are falling asleep at the back there, we're going to move through to round two, where we'll have the second and third of the sessions. So the second session is going to be entitled Market Outlook for Beef and Lamb for the coming year, and we're very honoured to have two great guys to take us through that session. It'll take the form of a formal interview session with John Slee, Scottish editor for the Farm Journal, and Phelim O'Neill, marketing specialist from the Farmers Journal, who's come across from Northern Ireland here to be with us. So a Parkinson type interview session, which will be very enlightening, I'm sure, once we move next door. Then the third part of the evening is the update from our focus farms. Since we launched the programme last autumn, there's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Our programme advisors here, Robert Gilchrist and Declan Mallon, have been working with our 6 focus farms, and each of the farms have gone through a lot of interrogation and planning and all these things. Started off with a whole farm business review. They've been benchmarking their livestock enterprises to understand exactly how they are performing, and they've all developed 3-year plans with our advisors to improve the profitability going forward on their units. So we're delighted that all the farmers are here with us tonight in the audience, and we'll be seeing them all on the stage when we go next door for the final session. We'll be hearing from them how they've got on, what their experiences has been like, and the challenges that have been put in front of them on the way through. So really, without further ado, it's enough of me at this stage. I'm just going to hand over to our 2 advisors, Robert and Declan, who are going to kick off with the first session. Okay?
Cheers, John. Okay, everyone, you're welcome here this evening. So, first of all, we said we'd change things up a bit and do a live demo here to try and keep things interesting. We've 2 calves here that we're going to let in a minute, and we'll chat about them more when we do, but really what we're looking at here is calving spread, and it's really something we keep harping on about. But a lot of the farms that we visit, calving spread is quite protracted on a lot of farms, so a lot of farm cases we're spring and autumn calving, and we spend a little bit too long at each of them. So we're really focusing on some of our focus farms as well. It's all about trying to tighten up that calving spread and get a more even bunch of cattle both times of the year. So we say, why is calving spread so important? What's wrong with having calves all year round? Well, it's really that we're losing productivity there, and unproductive cows really get masked up in the whole system. So while she's slipping around, if she slips a cycle, 2 cycles each year, if you're calving all year round, it's not the same one that's calving in June. If she's calving, she could be slipping a month every year, and you're losing productivity there. So really, what we're talking about here is just having the discipline of keeping things tight. So, Robert, do you want to let in the 2 calves one first? So, Robert, do you want to talk us through 2 calves here in front of us?
So, these are 2 pieces in for tomorrow. The red limmy, in case you hadn't guessed, is a wee bit older than the wagon. Red beast is a January born calf, and the black beast is a July born calf. And you can see yourself, there's quite a spread in size just between the 2 beasts. We got them weighed, the lads weighed them out the back for us earlier on there. And the red beast tips the scales at 360 kilos, and the black beast tips the scales at 205 kilos. So you're looking at, 160-ish kilos of spread of weight between the two of them, which is a heck of a spread when you think about the two calves coming to market. We interrogated Alan a few minutes ago and forced him to put a value on them, and realistically, the red shield's going to go through the ring and give or take 850. That's no guarantee now, Alan. I'm not running up till it gets there, but 850, and the black beast probably somewhere 550. So you're looking at 300 to 350 quid a difference between the two calves. And this is where we start getting into how calving spread affects the system. Because you've got kind of two options. Option one is you bring both of them to the market on the same day. And option two is you stand the wean for a bit longer. So if we dig into the calving spread piece, as I say, this lad's a January born lad. Another is July born. You're thinking, well, that's a heck of a spread. To be fair, that's kind of where most of the UK herd is. If you go through BCMS data and look from first calf to last calf, the average calving period lasts 19 weeks, just shy of 6 months. So this isn't unique. This is basically first-born calf to last-born calf in the average herd in the whole of the British Isles. So it does happen, and it happens pretty regularly, obviously, because that's what the average beast is. And if that's what the average is, there's obviously also some that are way beyond that too. As Declan said, you've got a spring herd and an autumn herd. And I've found in my years of going into places, you kind of go in and ask about calving, and just, we're calving the spring and we calve in the autumn, and you say, okay, when's spring calving start? Beginning of March. When do you finish that? Late July. When's autumn calving start? Beginning of August. When does it finish? About February time. That's not spring and autumn, that's 12-month calving. That's like a dairy herd. We're all year round. So really, if we start digging into the backstory here, and Declan, you want to just run through the kind of like the calving interval, calving spread side of it?
So again, if you look at national data, current calving interval for Scotland is about 410 days, and then every cow weans about 0.83 calves per year. So 17% of the national herd is doing nothing for us there every year. So think of any other industry, would they leave 70% of the workforce doing nothing for them? Maybe you don't want to answer that question. But so 410 days, that 0.83 is where a lot of that is coming from. A lot of people think it's coming from dead calves and stuff like that, but a lot of it is coming from this time slipping of unproductive days. So again, if you look at the two calves, they're two fine quality calves. We're not knocking the quality of this calf, but if this calf had the chance that this calf has had, an extra 160 days, which is the difference between them, if this calf had been born earlier in the spring, got out to spring grass, got a full season of grass at him, it'd be a very different beast. Look at coming through the ring here, he's going to make probably 550 pounds versus 850, depending on who wants him. You could be up to 900 pounds for here. So if you think of bring it back to the cost of the cow. So again, going on national data, cost of running a cow between 700 and 800 pounds a year. So this one isn't wiping his face, whereas this one is at least doing something for you. So again, it's about trying to maximize profitability on the farm. So this guy, unfortunately, he's just missed out on probably 100 days of grass, or he could say another 100 kilos at a kilo a day, a very cheap gain. So the options then for this one, say if he's only July born, who here would probably still leave him on the cow for another few weeks? Would everyone wean him? Is he ready for weaning? A few heads shaking. So again, it comes back to then, if you think on the cow side of things, so if you have a cow that's calving in July, she's going to come into the house this time of year. If she's going to be milking on, she's going to, you're going to be working her hard. So, silage quality needs to be very good. if she's coming in thin, so you're going to have a knock-on effect again. That's going to have more fertility issues. So again, this cow that had this calf, again, he's ready for a weaning. He could have been weaned, say, 6 weeks ago if his cow, with the bad weather that we had and poor conditions for grazing, you could have whipped that calf off the cow, saved a bit of condition on the cow, so bring it into the indoors this time of year. Then, and you'd have a lot cheaper winter feed for that cow. So I suppose, where would these two guys, who's the buyers for them, Robert, or what do you think, where they're going to go?
I mean, that's the other thing. You look at the system here. I mean, the wee fella, it's going to be this time next year before he hits a finishing house. Whereas this lad, he'll be long on the shop shelf and consumed by that stage. The 360 kilo beasts only need another 100 kilos of weight gain before he goes on to a finishing ration. This lad needs 200, 250, 300 kilos again before he goes on to a finishing ration. It's a heck of a long time to wait. And no matter which way you cut the whole thing, it all comes down to the cost of feed. It's well known in the chicken sector, it's well known in the pig sector, it's getting there in the dairy sector. Beef and sheep are not quite there yet, but no matter which way you cut the numbers, you sit there and play them through variable costs, fixed costs, the whole thing. 2/3 to 3/4 of the cost of bringing these guys out is related to feed. No matter which way you cut it. So basically, the more we can do with the feed we've got, the better. And as Declan says, this fella could have had a lot of cheap gain at grass. But the problem is, he wasn't born in time to do it. And it's not just him. If he was born in July, realistically, his mother's not started cycling again until September. So cows tend to become fertile when they've got a rising plane of nutrition. Does the grass get better or worse as you go into the back end of the year? September grass is nothing like what March, April, May grass is, June grass. So not only that, you've got either a loss of a cycle, a loss of another cycle, a loss of another cycle. You've got a beast that's going to slip even further back. Because the simple fact of the matter is the energy is not in the grass to give the cow cycling, or you bring her into the shed and you feed her up. Well, again, it goes back to that feed cost thing. You've missed the opportunity of the grass. You've missed the opportunity to put weight in the cow's back. When the cow's milking, it's also the cheapest weight gain you can give her. So putting weight on when animals are milking is much cheaper than putting weight on when animals are not milking. So again, you're back in a situation where weight, it all just keeps coming back to this cost factor. And it's really, it's a situation that needs sorting, and there's a variety of avenues to go down when it comes to fixing it. So, Declan, after me beating them up, do you want to give them a few solutions?
Okay, so say we all have them on our farm. If the type of cow that's calved down in July, she's not really fitting in with the system. You have a few options with her. I suppose you could say this guy was born in January, he's 360 kilos there for January born, so he hasn't completely been rocking and rolling either, So if you have cows like that and you're trying to mate them up more with the start of the grazing season, it's easier to fix a cow like that than it is for this one. So you can just simply hold her back for a couple of weeks, don't let out the bull, get her calving, maybe closer to getting the grass. So you're getting out, you're getting that boost in milk yield if she's getting out to grass within 6 weeks of calving. He was born in January, maybe it was 8-10 weeks more before he got out to grass. Versus your July born, right, if you have an autumn calving herd, then suddenly next year this cow is probably going to be the perfect autumn calving cow. But, again, that's where you get this this lack of productivity, and it's getting masked in this kind of spread calving. So this year, cull cow prices were fairly good. They're still fairly good. Straw is getting expensive. Silage is maybe not plentiful. This is the year to get rid of those animals. You can get her out of the system and replace her in spring either with a heifer to go to the bull, or a cow with calf at foot or something like that. And it isn't going to, like if you take, like Robert, what's it going to cost to winter that calf's cow for this winter?
The cow?
Yeah.
you're probably looking at the best part of £1.20, £1.30 a day.
Buy it around farms instead of milking.
Still milking, £1.50, £1.60 a day. That's just a feeder. Then we've got a bedder as well. So, you know, a lot cheaper to get them spayed and send her off down the road. But I mean, the other thing is, just jumping back for a second on the feed cost, this calf here, if you do stand him at home, I mean, he's costing another 150 quid as well, just to feed him through the winter. So it's a real significant effect can be had by taking these guys out of the system. And I mean, his mammy, you could almost try and get her onto some stubbles or keep her on straw a while, or, you know, she's done her job, she's finished. She can sit back, she can relax, she can cruise through the winter, take her through the spring and start the whole thing again. Whereas his mammy's going to need a lot of help to get through the winter, keeping it right, keeping her grow, keep the milk on her, keep the calf growing. Another thing when you start looking at that then is, if this is 1 or 2 or 3 beasts out of a herd of 50, 60, 100, you've suddenly got 3 animals penned off in a corner that you're feeding a separate diet to. You know, again, you're doing it. There's a lot of feasting about and a lot of extra work added just to have a few wee animals that didn't quite fit the system in a corner on their own. You've also got the fact that, you know, you can treat all their lads at one time for vaccinating, for weaning, you know, give them all their pneumonia vaccine, do the whole lot, and then you've got to bring them back in again to do another 3 or 4 beasts in a few weeks' time. You know, when you start adding all these things together, you know, on the one hand, it's feed cost and it's cost. There's another cost, something that you guys are pretty precious short of as well. That's time. You know, Perish had thought you actually might want to pay yourselves a wage somewhere along the way. Time is a pretty precious resource that you don't get back. You know, at least with cash, you can bounce backwards and forwards with it a wee bit, but time doesn't come back. Once it's gone, it's gone. You spend a lot of time dragging these guys back in, treating them, putting them back out again. You know, you come through at the springtime there, and 50, 60, 100 cows calve out the road, and then there's 5 kicking about in the corner of the shed again, or kicking about in a paddock out in front of the house, or kicking about somewhere, tying up space, tying up grass, tying up time. I mean, you're flat out calving, it's fine, because you're on the ball, you're in the shed all the day, you're backwards and forwards to them, pretty regular. But once you're kind of past that peak of calving, then you're no back past them quite so much. Either in the field in front of the house, and you pass them regular, but they're not getting the same attention. And generally you find the greatest hassle cows are these girls. Because no matter which way you're at it, you know, you're trying to do something else. I mean, if you calved in July while you're in the middle of silage, or even better, could be away on holiday. You never know. Whereas January into March, at least you're in the shed, you know, you've got your mind concentrated on one job. You get one job, park it. On the next job, park it. If you've got 365-day calving, it's the same job every day, every day, every day. And it starts to count up and mount up. And as I say, time doesn't come back to you, so just another thought on that side of things. So, is there anything else?
Yeah, so just, again, coming back to getting those cows out of the system, so, right, like today there was nice fleshed continental cows coming through here, like as long as they've flesh on their backs, you know, cull cows are going well, so you're talking probably 1,100–1,200 pound for a decent, Alan's saying more, 1,300 pound maybe for a well-fleshed cow. So depending on how they're coming into the house, get them scanned. If they're not in calf, get them down the road. Again, then if you have a few like this that are not fitting your profile, like it takes a few years to get that real tight calf, and you'll see it later on as we go through it with the focus farms. So it's about having a plan in place and just starting that discipline of having a date that the bull goes in, having a date that the bull comes out. Whatever doesn't sit into that system then is away. So again, you know, you're not going to start off by having a 12-week or a 10-week calving in year one, but whatever you start with, say start with 14 weeks, take a week off it next year, take another week off it the following year. and a few years' time, then you're weeding out the poor performers all the time. Often as well, if you find if this was a heifer, it mightn't have been sold, so that gets retained. Then you're picking out your replacement heifers. She might go to grass next year. You're picking out your replacement heifers, and you're stuck for numbers. And you say, well, that heifer is good and strong. She'll go and as a decent replacement, and that compounds the situation. Then you're selecting for animals that are actually infertile or poorer fertility and underproductive as well. So again, it's about getting those out of the system, having the discipline of saying, right, the bull is in for 12 weeks. Or whatever it is, and the date comes to take them out, get them away. We often hear, I've nowhere to put them, but that can easily be rectified. That isn't an excuse as far as I'm concerned. You can always find somewhere to get them away. So then, coming back to the two calves again, as I said, there's nothing wrong with the quality of the two calves. They're two fine calves, but you have less customers for this black calf here tomorrow than you would. So you're hoping that you're having farmers coming in that are wanting to fill a shed with these kind of guys, whereas your finisher man, he's not going to look at that at the moment. Whereas this guy, he's got a lot more potential customers. So again, you're looking at finishers, you're looking at guys that are going to graze them next year. You have a lot more homes for that guy to go to.
So, as Declan says, we put down this magical date in the calendar and say, right, that's it, bull's out and we're finished. And a lot of folk are kind of feared that maybe be a lot of empty cows. But the flip of that is, one of the farms that we talk about later on tonight, he had a calving pattern for the autumn herd that started in July and finished in January last year. And you think, geez, that's hellish. But if you actually sit there and dig out, you take 2 beasts that calved in July, you take 3 beasts that calved 28th, 29th December, 1st of January, you take them out of the system altogether, everything else calved in 12 weeks. So in actual fact, it's never usually huge numbers of animals. Sometimes it is, and in some situations we're juggling around with. Yeah, so I mean 10% of the herd's not, well, in this particular occasion it's 8% of the herd actually was out with the pattern. Now realistically, the July-born beast just holding her away for the bull for a few weeks, that's enough to solve that problem. The December-January one's a bit more of a debate. Me, I'm a heartless individual, I'd just put them down the road, but you lads are a bit softer than me, so you might run them into the spring and bull them for calving in the spring, but it's not a big job in a lot of cases to actually sort it. Some cases it is, in which case you've got to take a longer term view and maybe start it. If you're starting at 19 weeks, we'll say we'll make it 16 weeks, we'll make it 14 weeks, we'll make it 12 weeks, and just bring it down gently. But in a lot of cases, it's just been a little bit harsher, a little bit less sentimental. As an Irishman, I saw somebody had said that, you sort of stand there and go, she's a good cow. Well, his phrase was, she was a good cow, but she's just slipped out of contention, and the lassie that was right behind her, she's not the good cow, she's offski. So I think one of the things is, don't go holus bolus, don't get excited, but at least sit down, look at the start date and the finish date of calving. If you've not got software, well, it's available in BCMS. I'm a spreadsheet anorak, I'll sit there all day and trawl through numbers, but you can pick it back through BCMS and find the first and the last and start digging it out. You'll have your own calving records. If you've been brave enough to sign up for the beef efficiency scheme, you'll have the diary there with the data and hit. There's a variety of different ways of picking out the numbers. And I think that's something else in these things is, you guys all have the numbers. Everyone thinks that looking at these things is a bit difficult, but the numbers, you all have them in the farm. It's amazing. We were sitting with Arthur a few weeks back, and we've been delving through herd records for just kind of chucking ideas about. And then suddenly, he arrives with this box of index cards. Every cow listed on the index card, all the dates of birth, all the information there. You're all doing it. You all have the information. It's just actually sitting down and going through the numbers and going through it all and picking out and going, right, has this cow calved every 365 days, or every 450 days, or every 720 days? Because it happens. I'm just sitting there and picking these girls up. As Declan says, slips a cycle, slips another cycle, and if we don't arrest these girls and take them out of the system, they just keep on sliding. So the numbers are there, the information is there on farm. It's just a case of sitting down with a calendar, sitting down with a pen and paper and just picking through it and picking them out and deciding, is it worth keeping, is it worth no keeping, figuring it out and tightening it up.
Just one point that really hit home to me is like a 0.83 calves per year. That's 17% unproductive. That means every 6 years your cows are only having 5 calves. So every 6 years your cows have 1 year where they don't do anything. At 17% productive or empty.
And how long is the average cow in the herd, Declan?
Average cow is in 7 years. So every cow is missing a calf. So like that's a real take-home message for me, is that every 6 years your cows are on your farm, they're having 5 calves. So 1 year in 6, you're standing still doing nothing. Those cows still have to be fed, they still have to be dosed, they still have to be looked after, but the productivity isn't there. So if you can take that message home, if nothing else, I think that's eye-opening enough. Is there any questions or comments before we move on? Does anyone not agree with what we just said, or think we're barking mad? No, that's good. If there's no questions or comments, we're actually now going to move from ring 1 into ring 2 next door, where we continue the next session there. Thanks very much.